All right, everyone. So we have some more spoilers for the upcoming chapter of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, and I am going to be discussing some of them here in this video. Now, obviously, guys, if you do not want to be spoiled, then this is definitely not going to be the video for you. This is your chance to click off. If you're still here, I'm going to move forward thinking that you are okay with spoilers. Now, I am going to only talk about some of the spoilers. I'm not going to talk about the whole chapter because obviously I will talk about everything that happens in the chapter when the official chapter gets released, and I will put out my official Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 9 review. So some of the things that I do want to talk about with these spoilers has to do with Kawaki, Himawari, Andy Shinju, and one character in particular. And if you saw the spoilers, you know who it is. I will save that for last because I have some thoughts for that reveal that happens at the end of the chapter. So let's go ahead and talk about Kawaki first and his interaction with Boruto. Now, we did already know that this was going to happen because the official Naruto website did put out a page of chapter 9 in order to get us excited for the upcoming release. And we knew that Boruto and Kawaki were going to have an interaction, a possible fight. We just didn't know how that fight was going to go. And it seems like, according to these spoilers, it doesn't really end well for Kawaki. And if you are a Kawaki fan, then these last few chapters had to have been hell for you because Kawaki has not looked good in the last few chapters of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. And I do feel like that's on purpose because we do know, thanks to the flash forward, unless that's been completely retconned, we know that Kawaki is eventually going to get to a point where he is strong enough to fight against Boruto and seemingly at least have the advantage over Boruto. But it seems like we're not there yet, which for me is honestly, I think, a good thing because honestly, the story so far has been moving kind of fast. You know, we haven't really gotten a break from all these big moments that have been happening so far in the story. So the fact that that moment is still a little bit farther along in the story than where we are right now, I think is a good thing because it means that maybe at some point we are going to maybe slow things down and we're going to be given a little bit of a break from the story so that we can take in everything that happened. But then again, the story has been moving kind of really fast lately, so I could be completely wrong on that. And the interaction between Kawaki and Boruto basically went, I think, the way a lot of people already predicted was going to happen, which is that Kawaki tried to fight Boruto, but Boruto in base is obviously a lot stronger or at least more skilled than Kawaki in base because Kawaki tries to attack Boruto with a surprise attack. He tries to hit him with the chakra rods and then use that as a distraction to attack Boruto, but it just fails badly. It does not end well for Kawaki. Boruto ends up hitting him in the stomach and just sends him flying. And then Boruto even calls him out, saying that he looks really pathetic and that he wonders whether he trained at all in these last few years. And it doesn't seem like that's the case because it seems like Kawaki, who we know looks down on the shinobi method of training, it seems like he's basically completely relied on the karma mark and his Otsutsuki genetics and his Otsutsuki powers to basically give him the advantage. Because remember, in Boruto Naruto Next Generations, before he sealed Naruto, he told Naruto that he believes that it doesn't matter how much shinobi train, it's always going to fall short in the face of Otsutsuki powers because he believes that Otsutsuki just have powers that give them an unfair advantage. And while technically, yes, that is true, we also know that shinobi can compete against Otsutsuki. And while, yes, Otsutsuki powers can give you an advantage, just like how Otsutsuki powers helped Naruto and Sasuke in their fight against Kaguya, and those same powers helped them in their fight against Momoshiki and Kinshiki, but they also had their own training as shinobi to add to it. It was a combination of all of their skills that worked against people like Momoshiki and Kinshiki, and then later on against people like Ishiki. And Kawaki thinking that Otsutsuki powers alone will always trump shinobi talent and shinobi skills is just completely incorrect. And Boruto is basically proving that in this interaction between them. And then something very interesting happens. Kawaki tries to activate his karma mark, and then Boruto's also starts to activate, because remember, these two karma marks that they have always resonate with each other. And then as it's happening, as Boruto's karma mark is activating, Boruto starts to get scared. And then Kashin Koji, through the toad that Boruto has with him, is telling him he needs to get away because this isn't going to be good and something bad could happen. And then Boruto immediately flies away from Kawaki. Now, this is really interesting because people have been wondering why Boruto hasn't used the karma mark up until this point in the story. And my theory has always been that he's afraid to use it because he is afraid that if he does use it, then Momoshiki is going to take over his body. Because remember, Momoshiki lately has been getting better at taking over Boruto's body. It used to be that Boruto needs to be low on chakra in order for Momoshiki to take over. But then as the story moved forward, that became less and less necessary for Momoshiki to take over Boruto's body. So now Boruto is probably afraid that if he activates the karma mark, then Momoshiki will immediately have access to his body, and he can't allow that to happen. Now, this for me is absolutely good because if I'm being honest, Boruto up until this point has looked a little too good in the story. And I was wondering whether Kishimoto was at some point going to show that Boruto hasn't completely become perfect, I guess you could say. And it seems like that absolutely is the case because he hasn't gotten a mastery over karma like a lot of people thought he would during the last 3 years of the time skip. And I'm curious to see where Kishimoto takes the story with Boruto and his fear of using the karma mark. I do think eventually he will gain control because we do see him do that in that flash forward that we saw in chapter 1 and in episode 1 of the anime. So I do think it is going to happen. It's just a matter of when. But it is nice that we have Boruto having at least one flaw and one thing he hasn't fully overcome yet. And that's something we can look forward to seeing him do. The next thing that I do want to talk about is with the Shinju's interaction with Himawari. Now, they're basically wondering why do they sense Tail Beast Chakra from Himawari? And basically, they're thinking that, okay, you know what? Asking questions now isn't really going to get us anywhere. Let's capture her, take her with us, and then we can use her to gain answers for all of our questions. And then, of course, as they try to capture her, that's when Team 10 manages to save her, and they managed to get her away, or at least get her a considerable distance away from the Shinju. And then we get to the big moment of the chapter, the one that you know everyone is going to talk about, not just now, but pretty much throughout the entire story. A lot of people, I guarantee, are still going to be talking about this moment because as they are running away from the Shinju, Himawari goes into the Biju mindscape. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically the place where we see Naruto communicating with Kurama and where we saw other Jinchuriki communicate with their tailed beasts. And there we see a miniature version of Kurama. So yes, folks, Kurama is definitely back into the story. Now, it could be that this isn't the same Kurama that we know. It could be a different one because we do know that the tailed beasts, when they die, they do revive. And it could be technically a different version of Kurama or a new personality that looks like Kurama. You guys know what I mean. And that could be what's happening here. So it's possible that Kishimoto didn't fully go back on what he did in Boruto Naruto Next Generations with killing off Kurama. At least that's kind of my hope, because it would kind of cheapen the moment by having, you know, Kurama die. And then especially with how the anime handled that moment, to have Kurama come back would kind of cheapen that moment. So it could be that they explain that this is a different version of Kurama, that it's not the same Kurama that we knew, that we were introduced to in chapter 1 of the Naruto manga. Now, I'm really, really curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this reveal at the end of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. What do you think about it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Now, if I'm being honest, for me personally, I did kind of always assume that maybe Kurama was going to come back. I wasn't 100% sure. I did kind of think maybe it was going to happen, and there was a way to do it. There were in-universe reasons for how Kurama could come back. It's just that a lot of people believe that he wasn't going to come back because of how final, I guess you could say, the death of Kurama felt like, again, especially with how the anime adapted it. But then again, guys, like I said, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. And while you're here, guys, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to leave a like, share this video out there, hit the subscribe button if you haven't, ring the bell for notifications. And I hope I'll see you guys for my official review of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. Bye for now.